Hello and welcome to Salubrious Skin with Dr. Irene podcast. This podcast is all about how to attain healthier skin. You may be struggling with a skin condition such as psoriasis or eczema or acne, or perhaps a condition that causes the skin to become unhealthy, such as PCOS or irritable bowel or Crohn's disease. Regardless of what your condition is, healthy skin is attained by having a healthy body. So my mission is about bringing a huge array of experts to your attention in various areas of health. I hope you find this information knowledgeable and insightful and helpful for your specific journey in having better health. Remember to always connect with us through Facebook at Dr. Irene Prantelos, Psoriasis and Healthy Skin. You can email me at info@salubre.com.au. I hope you enjoy the show, and please feel free to give us any sort of insight into what you feel you need to hear in future episodes. Hello and welcome to Salubrious Skin with Dr. Irene. Now today's topic is all about nutrition for eczema. Eczema is a skin disease that is an autoimmune disease and an inflammatory condition. Often it gets muddled up with psoriasis, as often people intertwine the term psoriasis, eczema, but eczema and psoriasis are very different. In fact, when we're talking about the immune system, the T helper 2 cells are dominant in eczema and T helper 1 cells are dominant in psoriasis. And the other diseases that fall under the category of T helper 2 dominance is hay fever, sinusitis, irritable bowel, asthma, lupus, whereas T helper 1 cell dominance is Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, MS, psoriasis, and arthritis. So typically in this sort of situation, when a woman is pregnant, their T helper 2 cells go dominant in order to not reject the baby. Now, this altered state of immunity is actually passed on to the baby. And that is why so many babies suffer from eczema, because they haven't adjusted to that. So in that circumstance, our nutritional recommendations today are based on helping this T helper 2 dominance and settling that down, as well as reducing inflammation in the body to help the skin improve, and also to help treatment work more effectively as well. So when we're talking about food, we're talking about antibodies. Now, when we eat foods we are allergic to, we have IgE antibodies. IgE antibodies are released when we eat an allergen or an allergic food, and that will actually instigate a symptom instantly. You will get instant mucosal membrane swelling, you will get increased distress in breathing, anaphylaxis, hives, itching. It's an instant response, whereas IgG antibodies are actually released over a 72-hour period after you've consumed the food. Now, with IgE allergens, you know what they are. If you have a peanut, or if you have gluten, if you have wheat, you have an instant response. Whereas IgG, being a 72-hour period, it might be difficult to ascertain which food you actually have an allergy to. But we can overall recommend foods that have typical inflammatory constituents to it, and also are quite reactive to our health. So in that circumstance, we would recommend no spicy hot food, no greasy fatty food, no takeaway, no sugars, no wheat, no yeast, no gluten. You shouldn't have anything that is deep fried. And what else? I've got myself a list here. And cold foods, alcohol, soft drinks, all that sort of stuff. Food that is beneficial to your health, and so beneficial to your skin and beneficial to your treatment that you're utilizing, is green leafy vegetables. Bananas is actually alkaline and helpful for it contains potassium. Meats are more centered around your turkey, chicken, fish. You can have a little bit of lamb because it does help with increasing iron, but you want to make sure that the lamb is very lean of fat. So the best cut is your fillets for lamb. Now, as far as milk's concerned, almond milk is the best milk. Need to be mindful of the additives that they add. Sometimes they'll add carrageenan, which is a thickener. They sometimes will add sugars, rice malt, or whatever to sweeten it. It is best to have nothing like that. If you do want to make it sweeter, just get pure rice milk. Rice milk is actually very sweet, and don't get anything with added rice malt or any additives in it. And you can actually sweeten the almond milk with the rice milk. You can have soy milk. Now, soy is quite controversial because it's genetically modified. You would need to source a non-genetically modified soy milk, and also something, again, doesn't have the sugared additives. So the sugars that you're looking to avoid are sort of fruit extracts, rice malt, maple syrup, honey, anything like that. That's all still sugar. So sugar is sugar and still will be utilized by your body in that way. And when people have an inflammatory condition, it is best to avoid that concentration of sugar. Whereas when you're having fruit, the amount of sugar in, say, an apple or a banana or a pear is much less compared to a teaspoon of concentrated fruit sugar. So that's why I'm telling you to avoid that sort of stuff. When it comes to cereals, you want to have gluten-free cereals, and there are quite a few, but the problem is that they're usually fortified with sugar. So you need to be mindful of that. There's a brand called Lowen, which has simply rice flakes. It's got quinoa flakes, and it is just rolled grains. So that's whatever it is, rice or quinoa. And that has no additives in it, which is really quite a better choice for most people with skin diseases. As far as pastas are concerned, there's a brand called Organ. Then you can have rice and corn pasta sheets, quinoa and rice. There's a lot of brands out there. And what you're looking for are less ingredients. So really where it's just those two grains together, you know, the rice and quinoa or the corn and rice, whatever it is, because that's going to minimize concerns. Because I know with people with skin diseases, they can have sensitivities to tapioca flour and all that sort of stuff. So it's best to really be mindful of what's in those ingredients. Now, with raw nuts, you're looking walnuts and almonds. Always have raw. If you want to roast your almonds, that's perfectly fine. You can do them yourself. You can blanch them and then put them in the oven, sprinkle some Himalayan rock salt or Celtic sea salt, but don't get them already done because the salt they use isn't ideal, and you're better off using the Celtic sea salt or the Himalayan rock salt. As far as generally, we should be using whole grain, whole food, not packaged food. That's where the concerns are with sugars and other additives that make things last long on the shelf and more tasty. We need to be mindful of the fact that these sort of foods will have a lot of ingredients in it that maybe will create concerns in our skin and our overall health as well. Eating organic, biodynamic foods, avoiding, water should be filtered, not tap. Eating what's in season, that sort of thing is a general rule of thumb. Now with salmon's a great fish, but it's farmed. So I have found some patients are a little reactive to the food they give the farmed fish. Now you can get organic salmon. It is still farmed, but essentially what they're feeding them is organic and healthier. But, you can try some other small fish. Small fish are the best because they're less likely to have mercury in it, so and lead. So you're better off having the small fish if that's something that you enjoy eating. So gluten-free is the best way to go because gluten has been researched and scientifically proven to increase inflammation in the body. So even though you wouldn't have a celiac disease, you do have a skin disease that's an inflammatory disease, and so gluten increases inflammation, so gluten is a definite no-no. Now gluten is sometimes added to things that don't naturally contain gluten. So for instance, there's millet bread that contains denatured gluten. So make sure you read the labels and be sure to avoid gluten anywhere. Gluten is naturally found in barley, oats and rye, but beyond that, you need to be mindful of the added gluten. Okay, so Effectively, the aim of having this sort of diet is to create an alkaline body. So an acidic body creates inflammation, an alkaline body creates no inflammation. So diet's not necessarily going to treat the inflammation that's already there. The objective is to prevent further inflammation from entering the body. And the reason we need to do that is to reduce the severity of the lesions and reduce future flare-ups. And that's the most important thing. Now, with regards to having chemicals in the diet, obviously pesticides and all those sort of nasties are sprayed on, conventional fresh produce. Your best bet is to try and get organic if you can. Increasing essential fatty acids through avocado and fish. Also, olive oil is a great thing. Extra virgin olive oil, that's the ideal oil to consume. Essentially, you want to be eating foods that create a healthy digestive system and that would offset into a healthy liver. A lot of sugar, a lot of processed foods create what we call a fatty liver, and that's because the liver can't process all that excess sugar, and so it becomes a fatty liver, which means it's going to create more stress in the body and more inflammation and create more skin concerns. So eating clean and healthy foods will create a healthier liver. Now, as far as eczema, there's a histamine response, and that's why, with sinusitis and hay fever, it's histamine that is released by the mast cells. So to reduce histamine in the blood, we need to eat foods that contain vitamin C, B6 and quercetin. Foods that have these sort of nutrients are papaya, pawpaw, mung bean sprouts, Brussels sprouts and spring onions. So essentially what you want to do is reduce histamine in the body, and they're the sort of foods you want to incorporate, hopefully on a daily basis. Now, the question I get most from my patients is, do I need to stay on this diet forever? And the thing is that eczema is, there's a genetic component to it. And so when there's a genetic component, we need to understand that genetics, you don't want to necessarily change genetics. Once a gene has been switched on, trying to switch it off can actually cause a lot of disruption to other genes. And we've seen that historically over a period of time with medications and biologics where they've attempted to do this and they've actually switched on other genes, which hasn't been ideal, and as a result have been banned from the market. But the reality and the truth is that if we can target and manage these diseases in a way that we know we can, we will essentially treat them, and over a period of time reduce the severity of flare-ups and the frequency of flare-ups. So by eating a clean and healthy diet, you will ultimately have a healthier body. Now, by returning to these sort of foods later on, what you're essentially doing is potentially opening the doors of leaky gut syndrome again. Now, leaky gut syndrome is a topic I've discussed in past episodes, and you can find it, I'm sure it's maybe around episode 6, I'm not sure, but somewhere in the beginning where I identify what leaky gut syndrome is and how commonly it's associated with skin diseases such as eczema. And so to keep the gut healthy, to increase the gut flora, then ideally I recommend people to stay on this sort of diet for the long term. On occasion, if you eat something, that's okay, but it has to be very seldom and on occasion in a small quantity. You can't be consuming large quantities of these foods, because what happens is you get the re-emergence of skin complaints, which isn't pleasant for any age. Now, we do have, I encourage people to keep a food journal, a food diary, because the food diary really, with my patients, I've really identified that people don't necessarily are very mindful when they eat. When you're hungry, there's this whole beast that takes over and you just can consume anything around you. So to be mindful of the fact that you can, what you're consuming is a great idea, and a journal can often do that for you. So being really honest and clear as to what you're consuming, and identify how you're feeling with your skin. If you're a woman and you're menstruating, the impact that's having on your skin, your stress levels, how much water you're drinking, how much exercise you're doing, are your clothes irritating your skin? Did you buy new clothing and all this sort of stuff? It's important to identify and recognize to make those changes to improve your overall skin health. Now, the other thing we have is an 8-week online program, and it is called, 5 Steps to Target Psoriasis. But the reality is that this online program is focused on taking out inflammation. Now, when we're talking about eczema and psoriasis, the real individual approach is based on the treatment. So say, for instance, I have 2 patients, one with psoriasis, one with eczema, come to me. They might actually have very different treatments, or they might have very similar treatments, because it's based on the manifestation of the disease. So when it comes to treatment, that's when the individualization comes through. When it comes to avoiding inflammation, these sort of things can be done quite broadly. So eczema and psoriasis are both inflammatory conditions. And so week 1 is a detox and cleanse. Week 2, you start your anti-inflammatory diet. Week 4 or 5, you start the positive mindset, which looks at inflammation that is released through emotions. And then later on we incorporate various treatments. As far as your awareness, you don't actually do the treatment. That module is really directed to giving you a list of what modalities are available that you can try. And then finally, shopping for these sort of skin conditions. What sort of cleaning products should I use? What clothing should I look for? What makeup? What skincare? Everything. It really delves into all aspects beyond your diet, so that you can really thoroughly clean out your diet and lifestyle to create a healthier body. And I know that there was quite a bit of information that you might have not necessarily been able to gather. I'm going to write this podcast into a blog post and post it up on our website. That's www.salubre.com.au, and you'll be able to find all the resources there. There's also a free webinar you can watch that actually goes through all those 5 steps and what they are. And you can definitely start making changes straight away. We have wellness recipes. We have books and CDs and all sorts of resources available for you to start you on a road to better health and healthier skin, and really the focus on being overall healthy and managing your condition in a way that creates a life that you're happy to live, rather burden to live as I once was. So thank you for joining me on this very quick episode of Nutrition for Eczema, and be sure to stay tuned for other episodes of Salubrious Skin with Dr. Irene, and send me any questions you might have to info@salubre.com.au, and I'll definitely be sure to answer your queries. You can always catch us on Facebook, Dr. Irene Prantelos. You can catch us on Instagram, Salubre Health. And also, what else do we do? And obviously, if you want consultations, a treatment, individualized treatment for your own condition, if you're local to Surrey Hills, you can pop into our Surrey Hills clinic, or in Victoria, or Skype. Not necessarily Skype, but we can do phone or Skype, whatever's easiest. I also assist people all over the country and international as well. So I hope you found this very informative, and be sure to catch us on some other episodes. Thank you. Bye.